Britain's Transcaspian Gamble. In mid-1918, Britain launched the Malleson Mission under Major General Wilfred Malleson, advancing from Quetta in British India to Meshed in northeastern Persia via the East Persia Cordon, a chain of military outposts established in 1915 to prevent German and Ottoman agents from infiltrating Persia en route to Afghanistan and British India. At the outset, Malleson had only limited resources at his disposal, consisting mainly of small frontier units such as the 1st Battalion 19th Punjabis and the 28th Light Cavalry. An experienced intelligence officer fluent in local languages, Malleson was tasked with a wide range of strategic objectives: monitoring Bolshevik activity in Transcaspia and Tashkent, intercepting hostile agents moving toward Afghanistan or Baluchistan, tracking developments in Herat, and, critically, denying German or Ottoman access to the Transcaspian Railway, the oil fields of Baku, and the cotton supplies of Turkestan, all vital for sustaining munitions production. The urgency of the mission escalated dramatically after the fall of Baku to Ottoman-backed forces in mid-September 1918. Deployment. In early August 1918, British Indian troops traversed northern Persia and crossed the Caspian Sea to Ashgabat, the heart of Transcaspian Turkestan, where they lent vital support to the newly formed, fragile Transcaspian government. This government had been established earlier in 1918 by local Menshevik leaders and railway workers from the Transcaspian Railway, together with ex-Russian imperial officials in opposition to the Bolsheviks. The fighting in this theatre took place almost entirely along the railway line, as both sides employed improvised armoured trains. Operations in the surrounding Karakum desert were not practical due to the near-total lack of water. The Menshevik force consisted of Russian ex-officers manning the armoured trains, field guns and a cavalry squadron, along with Armenian and Turkmen infantry and around 500 local Turkmen cavalry. This cavalry was led by Colonel Oraz Serdar, a Turkmen officer of the former Tsarist army who, despite his position, was unable to impose discipline on them. They proved unreliable, often motivated more by personal gain and looting than by the strategic aims of the campaign. On 11 August, the British detachment, reportedly comprising a rifle company of the 1st Battalion 19th Punjabis and a machine gun section, advanced over the Kopit Dag Mountains into Transcaspia. The official war diary of the Punjabis confirms the movement of the machine gun section under Lieutenant W.F. Gibbs, but makes no explicit mention of a rifle company. Some later accounts suggest that one company did cross the mountains in support, though this remains uncertain from surviving primary sources. At the same time, the somewhat mysterious Captain Reginald Teague Jones crossed the Kopit Dag in disguise to reach Ashgabat as the mission's political and intelligence liaison. There, he served as Britain's representative to the fragile Transcaspian government, relaying Malleson's instructions and reporting on the condition of its forces. Engagement at Bairam Ali. On 15 August 1918, the machine gun section, commanded by Lieutenant Gibbs, as mentioned, and accompanied by Major W.H. Bingham as liaison officer, boarded an improvised armoured train bound for Bairam Ali, a key position near Merv on the Transcaspian Railway. There they joined approximately 1,000 Transcaspian troops, mainly Turkmen cavalry and infantry, facing a Bolshevik force of roughly 3,000 men, supported by artillery and armoured trains. The Transcaspian forces were heavily outnumbered and at risk of being routed. The arrival of the British Indian machine gun detachments provided critical firepower, which they used to deliver disciplined, sustained machine gun fire against the advancing Bolsheviks. This action prevented the Transcaspian forces from collapsing and allowed them to execute a fighting withdrawal along the railway toward Dushak. Despite exhausting conditions and limited support from their allied Turkmen cavalry, the combined force managed to disengage with relatively few direct casualties. Although the position at Bairam Ali was ultimately lost, the intervention by the Punjabis preserved the Transcaspian force and bought crucial time for further defensive operations. Kaka defence. On 28 August, the British Indian contingent shifted to Kaka, where the Bolshevik leadership chose to mount a defensive stand. The position was organised under a joint command structure, with British officers retaining decisive tactical authority through a final right of veto. Captain G.E.F. Shute's No. 2 Company of the 19th Punjabis fortified key positions, while the remainder of the battalion stayed at Arctic. That same day, the first major Bolshevik assault arrived, using improvised armoured trains, locomotives and wagons hastily reinforced with steel plating and sandbags, bristling with machine guns and light artillery. Around 2,000 Bolshevik infantry disembarked and pressed their attack on Kaka town. Lieutenant Colonel Denis Knollys reinforced Kaka with his full battalion, placing Shute's company in critical defensive sectors. A Russian-crewed armoured train anchored the line, while the Turkmen cavalry remained largely passive. Newly issued Lewis guns proved vital. Sepoy Natha Singh, firing from a rooftop, continued to engage the enemy until wounded. As the defence began to waver, Quartermaster Lieutenant F.W. Stewart rallied Punjabi admin staff into an improvised blocking force. Seizing the moment, Lieutenant Colonel Knollys ordered No. 1 Company to launch a flanking counterattack with fixed bayonets. After 2 hours of intense close-quarters fighting, the Bolsheviks were driven from the town, and 4 enemy machine guns were captured. Stewart's initiative earned him the Military Cross. A week later, on 5 September, a section of 18-pounder guns from the 44th Battery, Royal Field Artillery, was brought forward to Kaka via Enzeli and Krasnovodsk, greatly strengthening the defence. When the Bolsheviks launched a major assault on 11 September, supported by 10 field guns, the British gunners opened fire with devastating effect, breaking up the attack. A second attempt a week later, this time with 15 guns in support, was once again smashed by the combined fire of the British 18-pounders and their Menshevik allies. By late September, further reinforcements, including 2 squadrons of the 28th Light Cavalry, arrived to hold the position. The fighting at Kaka was costly, with at least 5 killed in the initial defence and 3 more in later skirmishes. Bolshevik casualties, though never precisely recorded, were described as heavy, with significant infantry losses and several machine guns falling into British hands. The line, however, had held firm. Teague Jones and the Baku Affair. Following the British withdrawal of Dunster Force from Baku in September 1918, part of a wider British and Commonwealth operation in the Caucasus, Captain Reginald Teague Jones played a role in the aftermath. Present in Ashgabat during deliberations on the fate of the captured Baku commissars, he conveyed Malleson's guidance that the matter be left to the Transcaspian authorities, a decision that indirectly implicated both Britain and Teague Jones in their subsequent execution. While Teague Jones handled the delicate political aftermath in Ashgabat, the military situation remained tense. Bolshevik forces soon regrouped, preparing for a renewed offensive at Dushak, a strategic desert outpost controlling the next segment of the Transcaspian Railway. Battle of Dushak, 9 to 14 October 1918. In early October 1918, General Malleson ordered a strike on Dushak, a fortified outpost dominating the desert approaches to the Transcaspian Railway. To reach it, an Anglo-Indian detachment of about 1,000 men, comprising the 1st Battalion 19th Punjabis, C and D squadrons of the 28th Light Cavalry, a section of 18-pounder field guns and some 400 Transcaspian irregulars, undertook a demanding double-night march across barren country. The 2-gun 18-pounder section, hauled by horse teams with full limbers, was brought forward over rough desert tracks in what Major General C.S. Ellis, the official historian of British military operations in Persia and Transcaspia, later described as a remarkable feat of improvisation. The Bolsheviks had around 3,000 men, supported by 3 armoured trains and field guns. On arrival, reconnaissance patrols by the 28th Light Cavalry confirmed enemy dispositions. The main approach to the position lay across a 1.5 kilometre open plain, broken only by low scrub and shallow gullies, offering almost no cover. Before dawn on 14 October, the 19th Punjabis advanced steadily over the open ground. Despite coming under heavy artillery and machine gun fire, they pressed on. When their senior British officers and the Subadar Major were all killed or wounded, the sepoys held formation under junior NCO leadership. At the critical moment, they launched a bayonet charge in the half-light of dawn, crashing into the Bolshevik front line and forcing it back. Meanwhile, the 2 cavalry squadrons struck the Bolshevik left flank, overrunning enemy gun positions and cutting off part of their retreat. The horse-drawn 18-pounders, brought up under fire, delivered accurate support that silenced Bolshevik batteries and battered the armoured trains into withdrawal. One shell ignited an ammunition wagon in the station yard, setting off violent secondary explosions that ripped through supply dumps and rail stock. The blast added to the confusion, unhinged Bolshevik resistance, and left the field strewn with abandoned material, later plundered by Transcaspian irregulars. By evening, the Bolshevik force was in full retreat towards Merv, leaving behind wrecked rolling stock, several guns and large quantities of ammunition and supplies. The Transcaspian front had been saved from imminent collapse. The cost was heavy. The Punjabis alone suffered over 190 casualties, including 54 fallen, while cavalry losses were also severe. As mentioned, all the 19th Punjabis British officers and their Indian Subadar Major were killed or wounded in the action, leaving the battalion to fight on under junior ranks. Bolshevik casualties were estimated at around 1,000 men. Yet the stand at Dushak proved a turning point. It secured the railway, enabled the British-led force to advance and occupy Tegend on 20 October, and soon after to enter Merv. Later actions and withdrawal. In January 1919, a company of Punjabis took part in the defence of Anandkovo, suffering approximately 12 killed and 38 wounded. Planning for withdrawal began almost immediately, and British Indian forces were systematically evacuated, concluding by 5 April 1919. With the departure of foreign forces, the Transcaspian government collapsed, and Bolshevik control was swiftly reasserted. Legacy. Though overshadowed by larger theatres, the Malleson Mission illustrated both the limitations and the strengths of early 20th century frontier warfare. Small, mobile and well-led Indian Army units fought far from home with distinction, combining intelligence, improvisation and courage. Brief though it was, the mission delayed deeper Bolshevik advances and remains a little-known example of Britain's interventions at the fringes of empire. The mission closed in relative obscurity, while Captain Teague Jones, Malleson's key intelligence officer, continued his shadowy career. Noted for his resourcefulness, he later adopted the name Ronald Sinclair, likely to both shield himself from Soviet reprisals of the September 1918 execution of the Baku commissars and to continue working in British intelligence.